Not the face, not the face.
Hi, I'm Mike B from Who Dares Rolls TV, and we are going to be looking at The Others.
They destroy us from within. They claw their way into our world. The Others.
So The Others from Cool Mini or Not, and designer Eric Lang, a man not afeared of lots of plastic and loads of dice, and by God this game has them in abundance. But what else? Well, what is it? Is it, for instance, a dungeon crawl? No, it's not a dungeon crawl. Is it a crazy Zombicide style dice chucking random fest? No. If anything, it's probably closer to something like chess. So, the chess analogy. Okay, probably stretching things a tad, but allow me to give you a bit more information. We'll go from there, and I'll win you over. The theme setting, it's just in the not-so-distant future. Some Cthulhu-ish creatures, all representing each of the 7 sins, are breaking into our reality, and there's a team of assembled superhero types, a bit like the Hellboy team, are there to stop them, push them back, and finish them off. And it's a one against many. One person will play the part of the Sins player, and everyone else is the Faith team, the heroes, as they battle against this onrushing horde of betentacled mayhem. Each game is self-contained, it's not a campaign, and it's self-contained in a scenario. Each one you pick a board, a scenario board, and you will play through that during the game. Each of them represents and has 2 different map setups, so there's a bit of variety there for getting on. The players playing the Faith team have the heroes, and it's a real simple mechanic of how they work. They have literally 2 actions, and they are represented by a token that they flip during a move. And they can do during that action either move their characters across the board or interact in some way with either the locations or fight these horrible monsters, with, of course, some dice chucking. The cool thing that the heroes have is this escalating corruption track where they can take more and more corruption, basically pushing their luck to get more and more abilities in fights and effects during the game. However, this has a downside is as they max out their corruption, when it's eventually at full, all they then do is take health and they will die. And dying is a thing that happens an awful lot in this game with the heroes. They're disposable. They're disposable characters. They're not something you should become too attached to because they're going to die and die a lot. And if you should eventually lose all your team and be no more to spawn, then the Sins player wins. So the Sins player, they don't actually have a turn, they react. Rather like the Faith team, they have 2 tokens that they can use during a hero's turn to react to what they do. That could either be attacking with a monster, or playing a card from the hand which messes with the team, messes with the environment and does stuff. And that's pretty much how it works. So yes, while it at first glance appears like a complete random dice chuck fest, it's not the case. You can't afford to waste a move. Heroes need to work as a coordinated team using their abilities and moving across the board to knock off these scenarios as fast as they can, because the time is against them. As part of the ticking clock mechanism, there is an apocalypse track. At the end of every round, this increases by 1 point, and it slowly escalates, giving the Sins player more options. These horrible apocalypse cards, which will allow them to spawn deadly monsters, or mess with the environment, or give themselves a perk that rolls over to each additional turn. If this track ever reaches the end of its track, then it's pretty much then death for the heroes, because they're just being pounded on by damage. So at first glance, especially for first play, it may seem that the game is incredibly unbalanced, completely in favour of the Sins player, with their overpowered apocalypse track and the reaction cards and the other things, and the heroes just getting pummeled and pashed and crashed and blomped. But I've played some games of this as the Sins, and I've taken it on rather like I would as a GM of the game, and I've pulled my punches and done it. Well, once you're up against the coordinated team of the Faith team, who know what they're doing, you don't stand a chance. They will butcher you. So you need actually to play the game. It's very, very tight. It's very close. The balance is really much tighter than you think. And that Sins player against a team of experienced Faith players needs to pull no punches. They need to play everything. They need to play to win. And even then, I found most games, when you're at that sort of level of play, to come down to the wire. So who's it for? Well, for fans of dice chucking, then yes, you're going to enjoy this. Anyone who's looking for something without the dice, without the random, then you're probably not going to really enjoy it. Because this takes part of one of Eric's favourite mechanics, which is exploding dice, which literally means that dice are spewing across the board like lies from a politician's mouth. However, if you're willing to invest a bit of time, understand how it works, then there's a lot to love. It is a really tightly pitched battle of one against one. If you enjoy the idea of this more strategic play, though at first glance it looks like a shinier Zombicide, there's a far more dedicated rule set behind this, which means that you've got to really know your characters and know what you're doing, and be willing to sacrifice heroes to get to the ultimate goal of winning the game. And there's a lot to enjoy from both sides. The Sins player, yes, you're fighting for your life as much as the heroes, and it's satisfying amount of fun. It's really just above a beer and pretzels game, in my opinion. You can throw it on the table and play it through in a couple of hours, and you're looking at a fairly satisfying thing. It's just way beyond more satisfying than Zombicide ever was, and using similar sort of mechanisms in there. So yeah, it's not cheap. Cool Mini stuff, it runs big. It's got a lot of plastic in it. It's their value for money, and I think, in my opinion, if you enjoy the game and enjoy what it's doing, then there's an awful lot of value in here. There's a heap of the scenarios, each of them with 2 different ways of playing, lots of different tile layout options. There's 2 Sins, so that adds a bit of variety to that. There's lots of different ways of coming against it and the different scenarios. So there's a lot of variety, a lot of play in this space box, without having to dig into the expansions. But if you're going to spend some money on expansions, then my money would be on the hero sets, the hero packs, because they offer a lot more content, more tiles, obviously more heroes, more cards. The Sin packs add-ons, whilst they give you some lovely plasticky goodness, I'm not entirely convinced that the value stokes up, where you're basically looking at some miniatures and a set of cards to go with the Sins, which the theming of the Sins, though it's there, is just kind of thinly skimmed over the surface of it. Yes, the others, I enjoy it. It's not for everyone, but if you're a fan of Derek's previous efforts of a bit of dice chucking, you like the idea of the Zombicide stuff but with a bit more meat on its bones, then this is definitely the game you should go for. There's a lot of fun to be had here. It's a challenging evening's entertainment, and there's, as I say, there's an awful lot of bang for your buck in the box. So the others, we will give it at least 1 tentacle slavering upwards.
Woo! Okay, that makes me uncomfortable. That's making me uncomfortable, Eric. Okay, enough.